Greetings, John here. We are back for more Disco Elysium. Still trying to get back on track myself. Among other things, I'm back on the Final Fantasy XIV wagon, and also eyeing up Phantasy Star Online too, because I don't have enough time sinks in my life. Anyway, last time, 2 different parties gave us the runaround, and we managed to pry a sort of confession from them. Coupled with what we've learned from the body, neither party is our primary suspect. Instead, the search is on for Ruby, the hardy that seemingly planned everything, as well as the shooter, who may be someone else entirely. Now, if the shooter was on the roof, then that side door on the balcony is a possible entry and exit, except it's currently barred from the inside. There must be some way up to it, and there was a door in the kitchen. It's the only place we haven't really checked so far, so let's have a look. Inland Empire has suspicions, as it so often does. Sadly, it appears to be locked. Kim points out that it's an old paint job, probably older than the rest of the building. Garte might have the key.
Can I help you?
He doesn't have the key, and apparently he hasn't ever been able to get in. He acts like he doesn't care, but composure says otherwise. He's absolutely curious. He says he's cleaned the building top to bottom, so we're probably not going to find the key inside. Long as we're here though, we might as well tell him about the phone line. Sorry to be a narc, Clausier, but you did lie to us. Now we're even. Now, considering what Garte said, I was a little at a loss as to where to start looking. There aren't many other places to search in here. I did notice the window in the booth earlier, and previously I thought these guys would eventually clear out and we could check it later. Looks like that's not the case. Now, it seems our odds for checking this have gone up just by being here, and from checking the door. Hint, hint. Sure enough, there's a key in the bush just outside. I suppose that's technically not inside the building. Yellow ribbon is faded, indicating it's been out there for a while. Easy reach out the window, if we can get these guys to move. Todd, as usual, is being a dick about this, and the rest aren't far behind. Thankfully, Theo's a bit more mature than the rest of the bunch, willing to hand it over, probably just to get us to leave. A workshop key. Whatever this opens is probably from an older business, possibly much older. No guarantee it works, but we might as well try. Score. Pinball machines, huh? Some kind of storage here. Weird themes for games, a lot of historical stuff. I mean, I'm trying to imagine making a pinball machine out of, like, the Russian Revolution, or some obscure European war or something. I guess you work with what you know. Kim's a little prickly on the subject of pinball, almost visibly so. Half-Light sees through him. There's a visceral dislike in his reaction. It's implied that we can recall something about him. Not sure what, though. Not bad odds, but I wasn't feeling it this time. Let's leave that be and carry on. 5 real, that'll do nicely. And good thing they haven't changed currency in the last 10 years, or however long it's been. This elevator sure looks pretty old. Just big enough for the 2 of us. And this is strange. The card says it was last maintained in 88, and the current year is 51. So this was last checked over 60 years ago, well before the Communist Revolution in '02. Kim, always looking on the bright side. Fuck it, YOLO. Well, sure looks like a workshop up here. Looks like the place used to be a pinball arcade, and this is where they fixed up the machines. Nice coat, don't mind if I do. Gives us bonuses to empathy and hand-eye coordination, which is useful. And actually looks a bit more detective-y with the hat on. See, it's all coming together. Logic realizes just how long it's been. Kim elaborates. This is what was here before the whirling in rags. According to Garte, it's been at least 10 years. Seems like pinball went out of style even further back, more like 15 or 20. We never did sort out the Doom commercial area stuff. I need to go back for another try. Anyway, the whirling is on the call button for the building, which would link it to the supposed curse. I think we can assume that's not real, however. Inland Empire thinks we should tell him anyway. Well now, looks like we've got some footprints here. The thick dust makes them very easy to spot. Someone's been here, and recently. A week or two, 3 tops. That lines up with the time of the shooting. There's that smile. He likes this development. So someone was back here, around when our victim was shot. This room probably exits to the roof, so that's a big deal. Now the patterns are the same size as our odd soul, who we now know was Ruby, but the print is different. Kim rightly points out that people do change shoes. It doesn't mean it wasn't her, but it does mean that the boots in the yard weren't being worn here. And that's a curious detail. Would Ruby have stopped to change boots once all this was underway? Something else on the wall here. A peephole going into Clausier's bedroom. Well, isn't that convenient? We can probably guess why it's there in the first place, but someone could have been using it to spy on Clausier specifically. It's not like her and Lily were being quiet about what they were doing. Be still, my dog of war. I understand your pain, but we do it my way. I wonder if it's significant that it's been barred. Did the shooter block this off after the murder? I don't know. As long as we're back out here, we might as well pick Clausier's brain a bit more. Maybe she heard someone moving around back there.
What brings you up here in the rain?
Hate to break it to you, miss, but you haven't been as alone up here as you think. We tell her about the tracks. She's less than comfortable with this. Understandably, the peephole is even more unsettling. We've got the spare key, but we don't know who might have had access around the time of the murder. Someone was almost certainly spying on her, though she didn't mention hearing anyone leave. Now, she was disoriented and on cocaine, but someone tromping around in boots, carrying a rifle, would have made quite a bit of racket, especially if they had to pass back through the kitchen. With the drama turning on her, we do have more questions we can ask, and I do think she's lying to us about some things. At the very least, we can ask about her name. There's no way a corporate spy on the run would use her real name when talking to the police. She's been lying a long time. The fatigue seems real, if nothing else. Katarzyna Latzyje. I think that's it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, that could very well be a lie too. Really, her dodgy behavior would land her as a possible suspect, but too much of the evidence points elsewhere. Among other things, it's unlikely nobody downstairs would have heard the gunshot if it came from inside the room. We can still arrest her. On top of knowingly giving false information about a murder investigation, she has used people and destroyed lives. But who am I to talk, right? She probably has more to say if we pressure her, but I don't think arresting her gets us any closer to why the mercenary was killed, let alone the actual killer. Too many details don't add up. Figured this window's gonna need visual calculus, and I've got points to spare, so why not? It's easy for me to lose track of that. Often you level up mid-conversation, and my mind's on the story, you know? Alright, let's have a look at this window. Seems like good odds. Let's do this. Motherfucker! Fuck you, window. I'll smash you open with my other shoe. Alright, guess we're using that point now. Now, if this fails, then we're kind of screwed for the moment. That's more like it. One more time. Now we're talking. Alright, let's do some detective vision. The visuals in these moments are really striking. We reconstruct the moment and the various elements of the crime scene. In this case, we're using the window and the mercenary as a frame of reference. The window was broken by the shot, and all possible angles converge on his open mouth. We have some idea where he was from Clausier's testimony, so we can start to work out where the shooter might have been. The balcony is the most likely point of origin, which he marks as A'. Visual calculus puts it at a weirdly specific 72%, which, I'll note, is a skill percentage that fits in the system we've been using. It's an easy shot into a well-lit room, and we've established a possible getaway route. Unfortunately, any gunpowder residue or other evidence would have been washed away in the days since, and nothing we have suggests the shot came from inside the room. The shot would have left residue, something else would have had to break the window, and a murder weapon would have to be disposed of. No, everything so far points outside the room. Now, it is possible it came from further away, and we do need to consider the lack of noise or commotion besides Clausier herself. So we look further, try to picture all possible angles and Martinez. In particular, there's a boardwalk and a small island up the coast that we haven't been to yet. The boardwalk, B', has a few buildings that can make a decent sniper's nest. It's a long shot, but not impossible for a skilled sharpshooter, especially one using a military rifle. Further up, along the peninsula, is Land's End, B'. This one's extremely unlikely, no more than 3%. It's from ground level in a position with no cover over a kilometer away. The last possible spot is the island, B'. This is slightly better, the ruins there might offer a vantage point, but at that angle they're almost shooting sideways into the room, 5% at best. So yeah, we should definitely check out other areas, see if there's any evidence the bullet could have come from further away. Once we know for sure where that shot came from, we can start pinning down exactly what's going on here. It's still reasonable to say that the shot probably came from the roof, and that's Kim's position as well, but given the conflicting details, it's important to rule out alternatives. It's interesting sussing out other people with respect to the skill system. You get the impression Kim has high authority and perception, but low visual calculus and conceptualization. He's got a keen eye for detail and knows when and how to flash his badge, but has trouble imagining things and making abstract connections. I suspect when the team started writing each character, they standed them in their own system, and that informs the things they would say and how they'd react to certain events.
Can I help you?
While we're here, we should tell Garte what we found, and that someone's doing something in the back room they really shouldn't be. Oh, don't be coy. We know you want to know. Fess up, boyo. Sad to say we didn't see any working ones back there, and not gonna lie, the theme for most of them was, let's call it retro. And not in a fun way, but in a boring history class way. Still, a few extra machines might liven the place up a bit. Suggestion and Inland Empire debate telling Garte about the Doom commercial area and how the whirling might be a part of it. He's a bit uncomfortable with the subject, but not unfamiliar with it. Reaction speed picks up that he's been thinking about this. Now, it's interesting here, you don't really have the option to not believe the curse, but we do point out that the whirling used to be the East Delta Pinball Arcade, which folded. Empathy picks up that he seems to genuinely care about the business. When we first met him, he was more dismissive, acting like this was just another property to him, but he seems to be growing fond of the place again. I get a little Dante from Clerks with this guy, mostly just annoyed about having to come in and put up with asshole customers. Like, say, a bunch of rowdy union guys, corporate mercenaries, or an amnesiac detective who went a little nuts and chased off one of the servers. You know, for example. I think anybody who's worked a bar or retail can relate. Yeah, he cares more than he lets on. He even named the place after some song, which is a nice little detail. Kim digs it, surprisingly. He's not terribly fond of his other properties. One's just a hole for a bunch of washed-up communists, and the other is a kebab cart. Oddly enough, the whirling might be the only one of them he actually does care about. Well, good luck, Garte. Here's to a long and successful career managing a classy establishment. Oh, by the way, someone drilled a peephole in one of your guest rooms. Have fun dealing with that. Yeah, that seems to bother him more than the Doom commercial area stuff, and rightfully so. Now, we do have to wonder who put it there, but neither Garte nor the cook seems like a likely suspect, and as far as I can tell, there is nobody else on staff. Maybe this Ruby they all mentioned will have something to say about that. We can talk to Hardy again and try to get him to give up Ruby. With all we've learned, it'd probably be a very easy check. But with the layers upon layers of bullshit around Clausier and these guys, I think we're better off focusing on where the shot came from. We'd have been fumbling around blind without the bullet. Hard evidence is our best friend here. Speaking of bullets, we'll be making a lengthy detour before crossing the bridge. I got curious and looked into when you actually do get your gun back. While minding spoilers, I found out that you pretty much have to work with Evrart for it. A relevant NPC won't show up at all until you do a couple quests for him, which is kind of a shame. I was hoping that Roy's hints would be enough to pick up the trail separately. Now obviously this isn't really an action game, so I'm assuming the gun's more of a situational tool, like shooting the body down from the tree or holding up a suspect or something. It's apparently not the only way to get a gun, though I haven't really looked into where else you can find one. Maybe another weapons cache? I don't know, we'll keep our eyes open. And we will take our first steps out of downtown Martinez tonight. Eventually. Alright, Evrart, you win. Let's talk about this task of yours.
Mr. Dubois, every worker? That's right, Mr. Dubois. I see the socialist democratic fervor now burns in your heart too. How can I help you today?
So yeah, if you recall, he wants us to break open a door for him. The point being to send a message to what I'm assuming is someone in danger of breaking rank, or actively working against the Union. Yeah, you'll get your shakedown. God, this guy is just transparently slimy. It's almost impressive. Ah, Motorway South is done. Interesting. Let's see what this is about. So Motorway South is a point far in the pale where you lose all frame of reference. Hobocop thought deeply about this at some point, and that's the connection. A lost piece of the man you were. For thinking about this, we get a boneless to Inland Empire, and unlock all intellect white checks regardless of difficulty. Cool. Alright, let's skedaddle. It's interesting looking back at my earlier thoughts on the game, when I figured you would either side with the Union or the company and do their quest to proceed, or stay independent and such. There are elements of that, but not in the way I was expecting. Joyce and Evrart both expect you to talk to the other, and it's not so much that they offer different ways to proceed, as they do different pieces of the puzzle. It's a neat contrast with stuff like The Witcher, or Dragon Age, or Fallout. I mean, a lot of RPGs have joinable factions and such, which result in mutually exclusive quests or even full-on plot branches. Given the game's style, that's kind of what I was expecting, but you're instead encouraged to go everywhere, talk to everyone, and a lot of your commitments, even ideological ones, are on a personal level. I've got some nitpicks with it. Like I said, having to work with Evrart to get your gun back is a little disappointing, but I do generally like what they're trying to do here. Mañana's got the key to the door we have to open.
Hola, Wandering Man. How can I help you?
God damn, but my mind just goes straight to Cheech and Chong when I see this guy. Those movies were a lifetime ago. I'm fucking old now. Anyway, yes, Mañana has the key to this dude's apartment, and note that we weren't really told whose it was. It was just kind of inferred because Evrart wants to scare him. Yeah, I know it's easy to say I'm not really being political here, but it really is because I sold my gun in a fit of hyper-despair and the boss is extorting me for it. So the door in question is an apartment in the back of the yard behind the whirling. Rather sophisticated for a bunch of strikers, each part of the break-in is compartmentalized. He didn't steal the key, he's just handing it off and telling us where to find the apartment. He's a bit more philosophically engaged than he is concerned with the details. Like a stoner, basically. Rhetoric senses that he genuinely doesn't know anything about the guy. He is willing to talk, though. An inland empire is intrigued. Though really, intrigue seems to be that skill's default setting. Alright, I'll bite. What's this all about, Mañana? Yeah, in case it wasn't obvious by now, the Union isn't holding the line over the numbers. Not about wages, pensions, that kind of thing, but are actually looking to put their men on the company's board of directors and maintain total control of the harbor. As rhetoric says, this is actual seize the means of production communism. That's what it's all about. He's not terribly bothered by Evrart acting like a mob boss, seeing it as an inevitable, if not necessary, product of the world we're in. And to be fair, when the company has a squad of war criminals ready to gun them all down, well, let's just say there's a lot of corruption to go around. There's a bit of fatalism in Mañana's worldview, where all we can do as a people is to pick the least bad option. He views moralism, the status quo, as the worst of them. Authority wants to push back on its behalf, but it's a little hard to argue we're not doing their bidding, whatever the reasoning. And yet he doesn't really view himself as a communist per se. It's more of an individualist mindset, acknowledging a gut-level desire to simply have it all and living accordingly. Encyclopedia identifies it as the Boyadero Code, kind of a lone wolf behavior mixed with a personal code of honor, true to yourself, independent in your actions, loyal to your friends. It sounds nice, but that's just not the right level of disco we're going for. Call me when there's cocaine and alcohol. And fashion will regret 5 minutes after the end of the decade. Not much new to say about the Hardys, except that he shares the view with them as local law enforcement. Not a comparison that authority takes lightly, of course. Settle down, man. Save that flexing for someone who deserves it. Right, come on, Kim. Let's go trespassing again. Worked out so well for us last time. Alas, it's a bit of a hike, since there's no way through the fence. I'll probably fast forward on the way back. Now here's something. Visual Calculus stops to take note of the bridge, saying it's a bit unsafe. If you read the description for each skill, it describes what might happen if you invest too much in it. Pain threshold turns you into a masochist, suggestion makes you manipulative, and Visual Calculus starts running the numbers on unimportant things. It's not a serious drawback, just a side effect of focusing on a particular skill, showing how it shapes the way you look at the world. It's a nice little touch. Well, here we are. Who's ready for a little B&E? Sounds like nobody's home. Kim is a little less than pleased, but, well, what are you gonna do? As he says, every day you learn something new about yourself. I'm learning that embarrassing mistakes make one, shall we say, ideologically pliable. I'll note we don't actually have to enter, just open the door. But if we're already damned, we might as well claim our prize. Maybe we can learn why Evrart wanted to spook this guy. Hello? Yeah, what do we have here? Seems our guy has a mug collection. A racist mug collection, according to Empathy. Well, well, well. This person is unhappy. Yeah, you don't say. Suddenly, Kim feels a lot less guilty about what we're doing. And at long last, we find out where a racist mug came from. Now, does this actually help us? Kind of. Looks like our friendly neighborhood bigot was dumping his trash in the bin for the whirling, and as Kim says, he's now in the Union sights. Inland Empire gets it. Fuck due process, I have a quest log to complete. So it is possible this is the guy who tossed the victim's clothes in the trash. It's a minor detail at this point, but it's worth asking Evrart who this guy really is, if only to see how he reacts. Hey, a nice dress shirt. I'm the best at taking things that don't belong to me. The starting shirt boosts conceptualization at a cost of suggestion, whereas this one is a logic bonus with no penalty. We just need some better gloves, and some jeans we didn't find in a furnace. You know, it sounds a little crazy when you put it that way. Encyclopedia recognizes the flag. It's that of Revachol under the suzerain, the monarchy that preceded the communist revolution. Our mug collector has a soft spot for the quote-unquote good old days. Now, at first I thought that might mean this person isn't connected with the Union at all, and is just a loose end as part of the cover-up in the yard. But the truth is, in America at least, even though unions lean solidly liberal as organizations, you are going to find some deep red conservatives in their ranks. Presumably, much the same holds true in Revachol. Looks like there's not much else here, just some health drugs. Still, a weirdly relevant little detour. And we're no longer wearing a shirt that smells like I fished it out of the garbage. Progress! Alright, let's get back to Evrart. And you know what? It's a hike and I can only fill so much dead air. Let's speed this up. The 70s. Alright, Evrart, your dirty deed has been done dirt cheap. Let's talk some real business.
Mr. Dubois, every worker, member of the board. How can I help you today?
To get back to rating people's skills, Mr. Clare here has put his points into suggestion and rhetoric, possibly drama, too. Our own suggestion knows we can't budge this guy, so we might as well tell him we went inside. The thing about Evrart is he's constantly buttering us up and acting all buddy-buddy, but in a deliberately over-the-top manner. It's like he knows he seems untrustworthy and he's leaning into it. Just layers of duplicity with this guy. I tell him about the mug collection and the victim's clothes and ask if this weasel might have disposed of the evidence, and he gushes for like 3 whole paragraphs before basically shrugging about the question. Topping with a reference to police violence and constantly saying what a good detective we are, it's like he wants us to feel we have his trust, but knows better than to expect ours. Authority tells us that he's not saying anything else. Figures. Alright, big guy, go ahead and tell us what you know about the murder. I'm sure you've been practicing it in front of the mirror. What complicates things is he's not wrong about this. The company basically hired Blackwater to intimidate these guys while scabs crossed the picket line. It's of a piece with union-busting tactics in the early 20th century, when companies were basically allowed to shoot striking workers. Curious little tidbit, Evrart rarely leaves his office, which is why it's in a container. These guys can just move it with a crane if they need him somewhere else. I don't know if he's actually disabled. He says he's just old. I think he's also so obese that he just doesn't like to move a lot. Still, nice perk if you can get it. So he's sticking with the official story. The mercenary got drunk and tried to rape a girl at the Whirling, and was hung in an act of vigilante justice. While he keeps digressing, he does admit that a militant wing inside the Union is acting as the de facto police in the neighborhood. Like Mañana, he explicitly compares them to the RCM. Something tells me that Titus Hardy would never say the words socialist democratic fervor. Anyway, keep in mind that the real reason for the killing is being covered up by conflicting lines of bullshit. That it was politically motivated, and that it was in response to a crime. The important point here is Evrart claiming he didn't order them to do it, but he is condoning the killing. Empathy picks up on something, an uncertainty as to whether the Hardys would get arrested, and logic points out something even stranger. He doesn't use the story that clears the Union of wrongdoing. Why not? This might be a dumb question. I mean, who else would the mercenaries be hired by besides the company? But it reveals a little more of their history. This has happened before. Workers were striking over wearing protective footwear, which feels a little timely given current events, but the company called in another security contractor, Sediment, to put down the strike. Given Krenel's history, it's possible they used to be Sediment, and he's pretty sure the scabs at the gate were organized by them. His reaction to me telling him about the tribunal is peculiar, to put it mildly. He says he's worried, but is very, very obviously happy about this. Like he wants a massacre, or at least is willing to risk it. He may be willing to say more about it, but naturally that means doing more for him. Not much new to tell us about his people. You can see here he explicitly says all 7 of Hardy's crew. He too is covering up for this Ruby. He's consistently ignoring or downplaying Kim's questions, in this case about who's second in command. He thinks Hobocop is the weak link here, and he's not really wrong about that either. Curiously, we can ask for their cooperation. I think this is if you completely fail all possible skill checks and need to convince them to let you talk to Clausier. That may be required by the plot. And now he's trying to bribe us again. Volition points out it's less about the bribe than about proving a point to us. Fuck this guy and fuck his money. Besides, 5 real? At least cover me for another night, you cheap bastard. He's acting just like Clausier did when we tell him about the bullet, acting confused about the cause of death. I think we can safely assume he knows exactly how this guy really died. Well, we didn't learn much from that, but the interesting stuff is what he didn't say, but clearly wants to. Yeah, see, here's where he starts working us for the gun, and for more of what he knows. He's spinning it as a political thing, how he can only fully trust another socialist like him, but we all know he wants us to do one more little thing. Once again, I require nothing unethical or illegal of you. Amazing. Every word of that sentence was wrong somehow. So here's the other shoe dropping. He wants us to get a couple signatures for a youth center in Martinez from some people living on the coast outside the downtown area. I think anybody who watched a movie in the 80s can see where this is going. He's acting like it'll be some big development for them after 6 months or so of construction. Rhetoric picks up on the scheme here, suspecting it's to get the current residents thrown out. And you'll note that when I ask him about this, he's again evasive, going on about how he cares so much about Martinez and his people. Empathy seems to think he believes what he's saying, though you'll note he didn't answer the question. Kim isn't too impressed by what we've learned from him so far, and I confess to a bit of metagaming because I didn't think there's another way to get my gun back. Regardless, it's clear we're not going to get much more out of him until we do this, so we might as well start it and see where this goes. Get 2 signatures, mail them out. Goody goody gumdrops. I kinda wanted to try lying to him about it now just to see his reaction, but alas, I'm in boring cop mode for now. Got a lot of ground to cover still and not a lot of time left in the day. I've been reluctant to tell him about other stuff we've been doing, like the borscht or the drug investigation. I'm not clear how much it matters what you tell him, but for now I'm inclined to play my own cards close to the vest, just in case. So before we get underway, let's take a good look at these forms he gave us, see if we can figure out what the play is here. Right off the bat, something's off. It says that the construction period may be up to over 3 years, not the 6 months he claims. And this thing's gonna be huge, dwarfing the existing housing. Visual calculus picks up that it'll almost be wall to wall of the people currently living there. Inland Empire finds the design ominous. As dodgy as Evrart is, Kim doesn't see anything wrong in the documents themselves, but logic gives us a very good chance to dig deeper, with a couple boosts from our inspection. There's no loophole, it turns out, just putting the pieces together. The current residents will have their main street blocked off and have to deal with 12 to 40 months of neighboring construction noise. The implications are obvious. It's a plan to drive them out and scoop up their properties at fire sale costs. Luckily, this extremely predictable plan can be thwarted if someone forges his signatures. We've got a massive interfacing penalty to do so, however, and it's a red check, so we only get one try at it. We'll need to do this somewhere that Everart's people aren't watching, probably somewhere indoors. Onward! Let's finally get out of downtown and check around the coast. Trying to get a sense for Everart's goal here, how that fits into the mystery of who shot the mercenary. Obviously he is exploiting whatever happened for his own benefit, making it look like the company is ready to kill them, which they are, and that anything done in retaliation is self-defense. He's clearly ready for violence, or at least thinks he is, but the fact that the Hardys were using conflicting justifications make me think they aren't fully on the plan. Hardy's reasons for going along with this seem more personal than political, partly out of jealousy and partly because he genuinely wanted to protect Clausier. But if this Ruby came up with the idea to use the murder to stage a lynching, or if she's the killer herself, then she's the real instigator here, or maybe someone else is giving the real orders. It's very suspicious that he didn't mention her, and very unlikely that he didn't know her. The more I think about this, the more it feels like The Big Lebowski, where you have a crime that is made needlessly overcomplicated by the point of view. Hobocop is a recovering 70s party animal, and the dude is the stoner archetype for the 90s, but they fill very similar roles, and I think they'd see more than a passing resemblance in each other. Long story short, this is a pretty complicated case, dude. A lot of ins, a lot of outs, and we need to focus on what we can definitively prove. In any case, it's finally time to see what life's like on the other side of the bridge. The music changes, a reprise of the menu theme. And they really do a good job with the soundtrack here, it's very fitting. From the title Disco Elysium, I expected stuff with more energy and drive to it, but it's clearly going for a somber, mysterious mood. Like I've been saying, this game isn't about disco, but about everything around it. All the political and social turmoil of the 70s just waiting for the party to stop. Missed the change on the ground here. Damn, but people leave a lot of change lying around. You may note the tire tracks. Looks like our stunt driver landed here and smacked the hole in another fence. Convenient for our looting purposes. Not much over here. Looks like the place has been abandoned for a while. If downtown still has the scars of war, then this place never had much to destroy in the first place. Inland Empire and Empathy take notice of the swing. Someone liked the place enough to build one here. Kim explains we're in sort of unincorporated territory, a bloc obscure, he calls it, and someone tried to build a summer home here. Not the best of ideas, considering no infrastructure out here. Kim humors our scavenging efforts, but only just. Look man, if video games have taught me anything, it's that abandoned places always have stuff you can use. People left loose change in a breaker box. This place could be a gold mine. Hobocop sense tingling. Someone left a tape collection under the tarp here. Neat. This actually is a working copy of the broken tape we found way back in the start of the game, in our room, the smallest church in St. Sands. If you recall, Clausier mentioned we were listening to it at some point, a sad song that we basically started screaming along with. Seems like it's a pretty somber organ piece, melancholic even. You'll note the time seems to be going a little quicker while we listen. Logic says there's nothing to do with it right now. I'm guessing this gets played elsewhere. Maybe in our room again? Anyway, onward. Right after I grab this one thing. $1.20, nice. Anything else over here? Nah, it's just a fenced off road leading into town. You can just see other trucks jammed up from the blockade. Right, let's follow these tracks here. Hey, look at that. Think we found Evel Knievel. Let's just hope they aren't still inside, yeah? Man. Looks like Homeboy was ready to drive into the ocean when the ice broke under the car. The driver did jump the canal. I don't think safety was a top concern here. Logic connects the footprints, beer bottles, and cigarettes all around. Someone had a party out here when this was going on. It's a curious phrasing, however, the scene of the party. Either they came to admire the spectacle, or were already here when the car crashed. Something's up. Empathy says Kim doesn't want to think too much about this. Well, let's take a closer look at the car. Man, this thing is a wreck. Half sunk in the ice and looks like it's missing a wheel, too. Visual calculus puts it all together. Our driver spun out around the whirling in rags, hopped the canal over Roy's pawn shop, and landed here. If you'll pardon the pun, Inland Empire has a sinking feeling about this. Volition's a little more confident. Might as well inspect the damage, see what we can learn. Interfacing tells us this thing has some mileage on it, with the parts even not submerged looking worn down. The ice hasn't refrozen around the vehicle, so Kim thinks it's been here since last weekend, a few days ago. VC backs him up. All this happened Sunday evening. We can't do much with it now, but we may be able to look inside when the tide goes out. Esprit de Corps says we feel a strange connection to this joyrider, And Logic's weirdly excited to look inside. They're getting into the adventure game spirit. Click all the things and take everything not nailed down. Anyway, the tide'll take a while to go out. We might as well get comfy. There's a weird poignancy to this. Just two mismatched cops sitting on a swing, waiting for the tide to go out. Nothing to do but try to whistle. Alas, I'm no Otis Redding, and mostly just make a fool of myself trying. Kim, of course, can whistle just fine, and that actually heals our morale, makes us feel a little better. Much obliged, partner. Half hour later, we're still waiting. Might as well talk about something. Granted, none of these are great options. Might as well just bitch about the tide. Leave it to Kim to take small talk and go all literal on us. Yeah. Now here's a meaty question. Who would Kim side with, the strikers or the company? He's reluctant to answer. We are agents of a moralist government, which he broadly supports, but it's hard to tell which way he'd break if he were forced to. Another half hour passes. Looks like the tide's finally gone out. Curiously, Kim's been able to tell the make and model since we got here. Why did we struggle with that? He says it's favored by working men, government officials, firefighters. And because we haven't belabored the point enough, he wants us to guess what the 41 painted on the side stands for. You ever have those moments where everything just slowly comes together in the worst possible way, when you realize the answer has been looking back at you in the mirror the whole time? I genuinely feel dumb for never questioning where Hobocop's car went. Of course he fucking wrecked it during his bender. Yeah, look at all those question and exclamation marks. He knows exactly how bad this is. What can he even say, really? Inland Empire hints we've lost something else. Our memory? The past? What else can matter more than all this? This thing is history. Considering how Harry was acting with his gun, he probably didn't plan on walking away from this. Kim tries to cheer us up. Cars can be replaced, but frankly, so can police officers who wreck them. I am so fucking fired. Well, might as well take a look, see if we can salvage something from this mess. Story of this game, really. Well, here's one bright spot. Looks like we found another jacket, and our badge. It's a nice code, really, and stat-wise it's all upside. Bonus to esprit de corps and visual calculus. But I'm kind of fond of the current look, it's very Bogart. Anyway, let's check this badge out. I suppose we're lucky Hobocop didn't sell this for booze money. A lot of information here. Nobody with a badge ever wants to update the photo. They don't want to admit how long they've been doing this. In Harry's case, it's about 8 to 10 years old. At this point, the expression has begun to set in, though it looked less horrifying back then. Alcohol and a drug habit will do that to you. And hey, we got our full name now. He's not just Harry, he's Harrier Dubois. Over time, he will evolve Pokemon style into Harry S. Dubois. Is that actually a name, Harrier? A lot of French words and names to this. I'm assuming it's uncommon. So here's a noteworthy tidbit. Our protagonist is himself a lieutenant, which according to Kim is the highest rank that isn't stuck behind a desk. The 2JFR after his rank stands for W Freezer, which means he's declined promotion twice. Hobocop should be a captain by now. While there are a few reasons one might do this, going by his case history, it's likely he just wanted to stay on the beat. As Esprit de Corps says, he was a heavy-duty case-solving machine. Kim explains a bit more of the RCM's hierarchy. Peculiar that junior officers are teenagers, below patrol officers. That sounds young. More importantly, Authority says that Harry is actually the senior officer, since he turned down promotion twice. It's possible that affects how Kim's been treating us, but he insists that in spite of our erratic behavior, such as the wrecked car we're standing next to, we're doing reasonably well so far. Empathy helps out, saying we've earned his trust. I do get that impression from him, that he'll tolerate drunken craziness up to the exact point it starts being a liability. He can see we've hit a rough spot, and we just need a little encouragement as we put ourselves back together. Nothing interesting about the serial number, though it confirms we're with Precinct 41 at Jamrock. The issue date is back in November, which Kim thinks is when we were promoted to W Freezer. That's odd. That means his downward spiral may have begun somewhat recently. Between electrochemistry, logic, and Inland Empire, and our horrific necktie, it seems like his rockstar lifestyle took a long, slow toll, but a specific event, say a messy divorce, accelerated everything. Maybe this case was just the last straw. Kim raises another point, that Jamrock is a tough beat, so much that it would have 3 precincts but for the lack of money. It's legendary for the same reason. He actually sounds impressed. I do like how even small details like this tell us more about the protagonist and the world. We can infer a lot about him based on where he's from, what he did, and where he is now. It's not just good writing, it's efficient writing, and that stuff is my catnip. Now, at this point, I wondered if that affected anything on the ledger, and that reminded me that I never opened that hidden compartment inside it. As you can see, it's practically guaranteed now. Nice and easy. Let's see what we've been hiding from ourselves. Not what I was expecting. Some ticket stubs and a postcard. And this line. Fucking kill yourself, you asshole. The words just crossed our minds somehow. The 2 tickets are for a zoo in Revachol East. Covers the aquarium, too. A good place to kill yourself, apparently. The card smells of chewing gum, apricot flavored, just like the gum wrapper we found in the jeans. A young woman in her 20s. Effort went into this. She was smiling. Harry, I wanted to write you a letter, so you can read it when you wake up. Maybe it will make you happy. Every morning when I step out and you're asleep behind me, I find a little piece of sadness in me. I carry it in my chest down Voyager Road. Every step I take, it grows. By the time I reach the fuel station, it has filled me entirely. I step on the light rail and look back. Sparks fall from the bow collector. I know it will be like this until late afternoon, when I get off the 49, and walk back to you. You. Every step I take will get lighter. It almost makes me run. Sometimes I do. I can't believe I met you. I can't believe the happiness I feel with you. You have a vast, vast soul, and I will always, always, always come back to it. Kisses. 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 Everything's gone dark. There's nothing left to hold on to. We fall.
There is nothing. Again. Nothing, sad brother. No treachery, just blackout. Well, almost nothing. There is the ground below you, that's still there. And the small light that's on, fluttering somewhere in the basal ganglia. That's me. Blue eyes, that's me. Who is what?
He speaks of the sickening longing, the unwell emotion. Even in the darkness he's grasping for it, still trying to hold on to the great sorrow slipping in the water. Slimy. Here in the paleo-mammalian cortex we call it the shadow, because it's always there. Ah, yes, and in the olfactory system they call it the apricot chewing gum scented one. It's unhealthy of them to linger on it so, but as they say, what do you do? It didn't smell nice. It smelled like betrayal.
Bloated corpse of the past resurfacing? Don't prod at it. It will start moving again. There is no Voyager Road. There are no roads, no houses, no lights in the windows. It's all on pause. Your name is fuck all.
It certainly ain't Harry. Your name is passed out on the ground, dragged around by one of the other evil apes. They're taking you somewhere.
You think they would let you? Until you disintegrate into biomolecules? No. Someone is breathing on your face now, inspecting your pupils, stupid idiot.
Oh, but you are. They're pouring something on you. In you. It's...
Well, seems like we got a little too close to a very painful memory. I honestly thought that was a game over at first. Kim managed to haul us back to his Kanema and get us some water, which is pretty impressive considering we were out there on the ice. He seems to think we just passed out from dehydration. That could very well be part of it. Kim seems to understand. We're not the first cop to lose everything that matters to us. Some pain you just don't get back up from. No way to go but forward now. Let's get back to it. That was intense. And we've gotten a couple things from that sequence. A new thought and the ledger as an equipable tool. I'll have more thoughts on that next time. We're about to wrap this episode up. We'll explore the fishing village more next time, work our way towards the other possible sniper locations, and hopefully get our gun back. Until then, thanks everyone for tuning in. Stay safe out there, take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time.